that I will be chairing the meeting today. We are absent the chair, so we're going to get started. It is 1:04. We can start with introductions of visitors. We call roll first, I guess. Julie, if you'd like to do that, call roll for the board.
I'm here.
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 Present.
Okay. All right. So we'll get a pretty small group today. If we could have everyone kind of introduce themselves and let us know who you represent. And
All right. Lauren Downhauer, outside trust counsel.
Police liaison.
Alan Firschwaller, President of the Firefighter Association.
David Short, Vice President of the Retirees and Widows Association.
Kimberly Mitchell, Fpdr. Stacey Jones, Fpdr.
Franklin Mitchell, City Attorney's Office, counsel at PDR.
Del Stevens, President, Retired Firefighters and Widows Association.
Julie Hall, Fpdr.
all right. Welcome, everyone. A sign-up sheet for members of the public wishing to make public comment will be available. I don't know, do we have any signed up?
Want to
No
do
public
the
comment?
approval of minutes first here before we jump into public comment?
Okay, I don't really have a,
It's on your
agenda. Oh, right there. The one little thing. Approval of the minutes from the March 21st meeting. It's in the packet, and there should have been copies, I think, available to everybody else. So anybody would like to hear a motion for approval of the minutes from March 21st?
So moved.
And-
Second.
And a second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. So public comment period, I was told there is no public comment, so we'll move on to the action items. The first one is resolution number 516. Sam, are you going to report on that?
Yes, I'll go ahead and report on that.
Okay.
What we're looking for here is the Oregon Administrative Hearing Office. They provide us our hearings for disputed disability claims and any disputed pension decisions that we have. Back in 2006, in the voter-approved changes to the charter, a couple things happened in that change. One is we had a hearing officer required before then, but at the change, the hearing officer was required to become an attorney with the Oregon Bar, as well as having workers' comp expertise. And then they also added a requirement that we have a appellate panel that could review the hearing officer's decision. Members of the appellate panel were also required to be attorneys with the State of Oregon Bar, as well as having workers' comp expertise. The board in 2006 did some research prior to putting this on the ballot and determined the best option to provide these services was the Office of Administrating Hearings with the, bug in my glasses, the Office of Administrating Hearings with the State of Oregon. Since they approved it in January 2007, we have used them constantly since then. We are now at the end of a 4-year intergovernmental agreement with OAH and look to renew that agreement with them. We've had very good service offered to us by OAH. They have workers' comp expertise. They do know the Fpdr charter and rules. We feel that we've gotten some fair and objective claim decisions from them. So they have made decisions both for and against FPDR, so it's not a blanket FPDR approval for everything from. They when they make their decisions, they do balance them on what the charter says, what the rules say, as well as appropriate state law, and they use guidance from Oregon workers' compensation cases when appropriate, when there's nothing else to give them guidance. And they do cite those examples. They do use precedents from their prior decisions and precedents from other state court decisions when applicable. So what we're asking to do is go ahead and continue this for another 4 years. They do bill us on an hourly basis. Our expenses for the last 4 years were $235,000. We do have a cap at $400,000. I doubt we're going to ever hit that cap, But again, it's dependent upon how many claims are appealed, how complex the appeals are, and how many do they go to the hearing, and then do they go up to the appellate panel. So we just keep it at 400,000. The original figure was put that high because initially it was 1 year approvals of this, and they never had enough money to go 1 year, so they finally said, let's make this 4 years and put a large number on it. We find no reason not to change that. It is an hourly base, we are charged by hour, and so there's no incentive by OAH or anybody to run up the cost to 400,000.
Has the hourly rate changed?
The hourly rate is based on some state statutes or guidance based on state statutes. I think they've raised it a little bit, but not significantly this time. We are subject to the changes of those rates.
And then I had a question about just due diligence, just making sure that we're doing it and stuff like that. In 2006, you said that they approved or thought this would be the
Yep.
best remedy. Since 2006, 11 years now have passed. Have we offered it out? Like, if we gave other companies or law offices the opportunity to gain the experience and bid for this? I mean, how does that work?
The idea is, in 2006, they did quite a bit of work on it. We've intermittently taken a look, and we did follow up on a couple points. In 2006, they looked, could Workers' Compensation Appeals Board do it? And the Appeals Board said no. They felt the statutes prevented them from doing it. OAH was the Workers' Compensation Appeals process till just prior to us passing our thing. So these people had heard workers' compensation claims before, but it was moved into the appeals board, and they, from what we understand, is they believe statute prevents them from doing so. So you're looking at other organizations that can do administrative hearings that have attorneys and have workers' compensation experience, as well as being able to provide a hearings officer and appellate. Per the Oregon Bar, there is no other organization around to even look at doing that. The city itself has an appeals process that has an attorney that does hearing of disputed city decisions, but that person has no workers' compensation experience, and there is no appellate process. If you don't like his decision, you've got to take it to the circuit court. So they don't, that's another thing on it is applying that appellate. So there really is not anything out there. There's no organization that we are aware of that can provide the level of service. And I think we're getting excellent service from OAH. If we switched, we would have a big training period trying to bring up any organization into understanding the uniquenesses of Fpdr.
Sam, my memory is maybe 3-4 years ago, we got into it a bit with them and gave them some pretty pointed feedback, and they were very responsive to Fpdr staff.
Yes.
Set a renewal period. Did I hear you right, that the not to exceed 400,000 is the same as the last term?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
We've had no issues with them. Some of the concerns that we had, or that was had at Fpdr back at that time, was written into the attachment or the exhibit with it. They're required to follow our charter and have people renew, at least on the appellate board, every 3 years. They go through that process, formally renew them or replace somebody, and they let us know the process and who's there. And if we have any concerns, which we have not, we have the opportunity to voice those concerns with the person replacing somebody on the appellate panel. So they are following our charter. They are explicitly in this agreement expected to follow our charter.
Okay. Any other questions? It looks like we're looking for a adoption of this resolution.
Correct. You'll adopt the resolution, and we will have to go to city council on that, just because that's the nature of
Okay. So
these
I
things.
entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 516.
I'll move approval of Resolution 516.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I kind of went out of turn last time, but maybe you should call the roll. I think that's how they usually do it up here.
Speaking at the mic.
It's not on.
She's going to take the vote from there. That's how we usually do it.
Trustee McLeod?
Aye.
Trustee Delaney?
Aye.
Trustee Hunziker?
I as well.
And Trustee Lehman?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. So we'll move on to Resolution 517, Tax Anticipation Notes. We have a new speaker for this resolution.
A brand new speaker. Well, an old new speaker. Stacy Jones, Fpdr Finance Manager. And as I think everybody knows at this point, every year we issue very short-term bonds called notes, specifically tax anticipation notes or TANs, to cover our fund expenses from the start of the fiscal year on July 1 until most of our property tax revenues roll in, which is about the middle of November. So the resolution in front of you authorizes us to issue up to $44.3 million in TANs. That's the amount you approved as part of the budget in January. That's the very upper bound of what we could possibly need. We will size the actual issue based on a really detailed cash flow analysis that we're doing right now and that we kind of continually update and refine until about the middle of June, which is when we will finalize the offering statement. And then we'll look, right now we think we'll need about $36 million, which will leave us with about a $1 million low point in early November, right before property tax receipts really come in. And so we'll continue to kind of fine tune that, but just to give you a sense, I think about $36 million is what we'll need, and then we'll hope to close on the notes in July, in early July. Right now, debt management thinks we'll probably have to pay about 1% interest on our TANs, which is quite a bit higher than we've had to pay for the last several years. And City Treasury is guessing that our return on the City Treasury pool will only be about 1% next year. So, that's where we'll put the proceeds. So in the past, we've always benefited from this positive interest rate spread that we have paid less interest on the TANs than we've earned stashing the funds in the City Treasury. So this may be the first year in working memory when that's not true, or maybe when we just break even. We'll have to watch. These things are hard to forecast. It'll be an interesting year, though, so I'll update you in January, and we'll see what happens. We do have the confluence of rising interest rates in the bond market, and then City Treasury adjusting down their earnings expectations in the wake of council deciding not to invest in equities anymore. So those are the two things that are happening to drive that right now.
What option do we have to invest our money elsewhere?
None, because the charter says that we will deposit our funds with the city treasurer.
It's in the Fpdr section of the charter.
Yeah, I'd have to pull up this, but it is in the Fpdr section
So
of the
this
charter.
is one of the unintended side effects of council's decision to disallow investments in equities.
Yes.
Across the board.
Yes, and I think Chair Cooperman was immediately and fully aware of the impact on us, because one of the first things she did was call me and ask, how much will this cost you next year?
So they're projecting 1% in the market.
So they're projecting 1% returns, and they had been projecting 1.15. Remember, there's essentially cash and cash equivalents. They're
Short-term
very
investments
short-term
anyway, yeah.
investments. But 1.15%, and they've dropped that down to 1% now. So there is a financial impact for us, just setting aside tax anticipation notes on the balance we normally carry. That means we'll earn about $100,000 in interest next year. But it will be interesting to see what comes to pass. The city has only invested in, very highly rated, very short-term equity tools in the past. So I don't know exactly what impact this will have. It'll be interesting to see.
When was that decision made? I don't watch everything that happens at city council, but I think last meeting we had, you talked about this very thing and what a good deal it was, and now we're on a different path.
So I think it happened 6 weeks ago, maybe. 4 to 6 since the last
weeks after our last
since the
meeting.
last board meeting. Yes, and I didn't see that coming. That decision. I don't know if others did, but I didn't see that coming. So.
No, so the history is there's some activists trying to get the city to agree not to invest in certain companies. I don't need to name them. You've read about them in the paper, and instead of drilling into that list and making an intentional decision, they just took all equity investments off the table for the whole city. So our rate of return on every account like this suffers to the detriment of taxpayers now.
Hopefully there'll be some more to come on that, and they can adjust in the future, but because we have no control over it.
Apparently not.
Do you put together a formal report and submit it to council members indicating what impacts their decision, sorry about that, what impact their decision has made on this board?
We don't, but the city budget office does that for the whole city as a whole. They do a financial impact analysis of every ordinance or resolution. Now, I don't know the timing of how this all evolved. If it was something that it was amended on the floor, on the fly, there might not have been a full city budget office analysis. I haven't seen that analysis. But it would cover the whole city, every fund in the city, including this one.
So as we sit here today, we all, the four of us, the two of you, and the members here all see this issue, and we're a very small number compared to what the city council needs to hear from. Is it possible that we could request that from you to put together a formal packet indicating the negative ramifications of their decision based upon FPDNR? Because I'm assuming this is going to be every year. So is that possible we could request that?
Definitely the board, I could draft a letter from the board to council saying we want to register our, unhappiness with this outcome.
And you can give specific statings
And then
of
we
what-
could give a specific statement of, number one, this is what we would estimate the lost revenue is from the reduction in interest rates. And number two, we have this specific concern around how we issue tax anticipation notes every year, would probably be the two pieces. You may or may not want to wait to see how interest rates actually evolve.
I think in my request on that is if that could be done is, it's easy to find issues of complaint, but I'd like to also offer them a resolution so that they could potentially review it, see the negative impacts, and move forward to a resolution to fix this issue for us, such as what Trustee Delaney just said, is instead of specifically indicating specific ones. So if we could give them the negative impacts and then a resolution on how to not negatively impact us in a way that they could be equitable or whatever they're trying to do with that decision. Does that make sense what I'm asking for? I mean, just giving them the information is one thing and how it negatively affects us. I'd like to give them a resolution as well. Like, we wouldn't have a negative effect had we made this decision, or if you would consider this decision.
I do think there we a little bit stray outside of the realm of our expertise of advising them on how they could invest in a way that would be, I'm not an investment officer, and I think that we would be straying a little bit out of my field of expertise and saying what you could do is X, Y, or Z. Obviously, they could go back to what they used to do. Potentially, I don't think that would be practical to change the charter. To say that maybe it would be. That would be another option, would be to change the charter so that we don't have to pool our money with the city treasury.
Well, it just seems like a politicized decision, and this body is explicitly not to be politicized. And I think I'd just point that out, and that, some of us expressed our concerns as fiduciaries that our hands are now tied on how the funds from tax anticipation notes are invested. And it seems illogical to me to take complaints about a few companies and then remove an entire asset class from this board's purview as a result of that.
Perhaps not something as formal as a resolution, but, encourage them to explore all other alternatives, such as, a specific list of exempted securities and/or exclusion of these funds from the other investment with the other city funds, something along that line.
Something along.
But
I
not
think
as formal as
part of the
resolution.
challenge is, and so Stacy and I will talk about how to approach it. FPDNR are, again, trying to tell the city council how they should be running their business, which is solely their purview, is a concern. They made this, we can say this is how it impacts us, this is what to do, but if we cross over into dictating to them what they should do, we've got to be careful how we walk through that, because that's outside the purview of us and the board.
I'm just talking about opportunities, so that way, like I said, it's easy to receive a negative letter saying, hey, your decision is negatively affecting us. But if you offer maybe not resolutions, maybe just alternatives or just thought processes. And the other thing I'm thinking too, Sam, is I'm assuming we're probably not the only board in the city that is negatively affected by their decision. And maybe other directors that it could be a group effort to just give them information.
I'm aware of some of the politics behind this, and I'm just trying to be careful, is because there's a big push by people throughout the city that this is the right decision to make regardless of how it negatively impacts the city and other areas in the city. So again, we're coming in, we'll have to, this is getting into a political thing to where we're basically telling the board you didn't handle the money the way we think you should have handled our money, even though we have no authority to tell them how to handle the money.
I mean, certainly council was informed that there would be a negative financial impact for the city, and there's no doubt that they were informed of that and that it crossed all the funds in the city, including, the utility funds, et cetera.
Hi, Lauren.
So Lauren Downer, outside trust counsel. I mean, this does sort of implicate your fiduciary duties. Sure. Because to the extent you're safeguarding and making sure that funds are only used to pay benefits and pay expenses, that if this is money that isn't available to pay expenses, then those expenses come out of the other revenues vis-a-vis the levy. So I appreciate your comments about how the city spends its money, but this is not the city's money.
Stacy and I will talk about it. I want to be careful that you're pushing me, because I got the same fiduciary responsibility but is here, but you're pushing into a realm to where we can make our case on our statement to this is what it is doing to FPDR. After that, to where we start telling the board or the city council what they should be doing,
Yeah, and I don't think
that's
anybody-
beginning
I
to
don't think
cross
anybody used
over
the
into
term-
some stuff I can do.
Excuse me, use the term dictate. Nobody up here, I think, suggested that. They said, we're concerned.
Yep.
We want to let them know we're concerned, and we would like you to draft something on behalf of us.
Yeah.
And that's our opinion is, we're not telling you how to do it, but if there's a better way to do it, we would like you to search that out, explore it.
Okay.
And I'm sure they're already doing that. I would hope in the back rooms they're figuring out a way to present back to the citizens another plan, but I think we should let them know that that's what we would like to do. And they could always send us something back that says, we don't think you're right, and whatever, but I think it's our job to let them know, and not in a dictating manner.
So I agree, we can write our position as to what our concern is and how it is impacting, potentially negatively impacting FPDR. I think as we get into how we recommend and guide where the board goes, that gets a little bit an area, and I will work with some people to try to figure out how we can work that up to the point to where I don't cross the line to where it's beyond the authority of FPDR and the FPDR.
My goal was to open
board.
up a sense of dialogue with each council member and have maybe you and Stacy go in and open up dialogue with them, expressing, hey, this is the responsibility of the board, this is the responsibility. We're not going to tell you how to do your job. What we're doing is we're expressing to you independently and individually, hey, maybe we could reconsider some of your decisions, or maybe this would help, and give them options. Because the council members, they've got a lot of things going on. Obviously, we don't even have a trustee here or a member representing them today. They got a lot of things going on. I just want to make sure that we're at least opening dialogue to them. And if you're not in their face continually reminding them the negative impact, they'll forget it. I mean, I would like to say that they wouldn't, but they probably will. And that's all I want. I want open dialogue with them to express our responsibility to them.
And certainly we should pull Chair Cooperman. I mean, she's the city treasurer. This is exactly her purview within the city, to pull her into that conversation.
Yes.
And see what sort of way forward she would recommend on that as well.
And my thought was, we can chat and talk all day and things like that, but I would like a formal, so that way we can always follow up, but I would like a formal formal
Like a
draft
letter.
or a proposal, letter to each council member addressed, requesting a meeting if they would like, or at least expressing our concerns.
And then as trustees and fiduciaries, you're judged not on the outcome of your decisions and actions, but on the process you follow. So in this regard, if there is outreach to the city explaining how this is impacting the fund, there's not a whole lot more you can do.
Right.
But I think that is an important step for you to consider.
Thank you.
All right. That's kind of outside of the resolution, but you can communicate to us if you have any more questions outside of this, or if you want to share it with us before you send it to City Council. If somebody wants to add something or have a suggestion, we'd appreciate that.
Well, Stacy and I will get back and talk with you. I see this as being signed by you all as the board. We can do the draft. But let Stacy and I do some strategizing here on how best to approach this and move forward, and then I or Stacy can email you with some thoughts about how we're going. We do have to be careful that we don't have an email meeting, but we can get some information exchanged back and forth on that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments on the actual resolution and what was presented here?
I would make a motion to adopt, is it 517? Yeah. To adopt 517 as reported. I assume our discussion point is a sidebar, that's side
Yeah,
from.
Yeah.
that's not part of the resolution.
So I would make a motion to adopt resolution number 517.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. You take the roll, please.
Trustee Lehman,
Aye.
Trustee McLeod,
Aye.
Trustee Delaney,
Aye.
and Trustee Hunziker.
As well.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're moving on to the informational items. And our first one is the legislative
Anybody testifying on this?
update.
Okay, just double checking, because they can testify in each one of these action items. I just want to make sure that we didn't have any signed up for
We have
that.
the testified, we do that before the actual report.
Well, we actually do the report, then the testify, and then the vote, but I didn't think we had any. I just wanted to confirm there was nobody signed up.
Nobody signed up, thank you.
Okay, for the next, so the first item here, information item number 1, is legislative updates. If you remember the last time, I gave you a note on some of the bills I was concerned about how they would impact FPDR. The legislature's moved quite a ways down the road, so I'll just give you an update where we went. They're almost to the deadline to where bills have to be through committee before they can be voted on. That's June 2nd. There was a deadline last Friday of saying that they had to be a certain way through the process, or they couldn't move through down the line. So the first time we had talked about was workers' compensation. Is there anything that's going to potentially affect the FPDR disability plan? There was nothing ever proposed. We did briefly talk about the IME bill where they could randomly pick an IME out. That did not make it out of committee. I didn't think it would, but. So FPDR retirement benefits, anything that would impact FPDR 1 and FPDR 2 members. The only thing that was submitted that could have possibly impacted them were tax remedy, or what we call the tax offset. There are 6 different bills introduced to how to try to administer that benefit. None of them made it out of committee. One of those bills was tacked on as an amendment or proposed amendment to one of the major PERS bills. Interestingly, that bill was written to the benefit of one person. PERS said it was actually 10 people would benefit from it, and we have not analyzed if it would be anybody in FPDR. And we'll just wait until and if that bill passes. So that was very narrowly crafted. I think somebody was trying to, anyway, I won't go the political reasons why they'd write a bill that only impact one person. So the next one is PERS, and looking at PERS as an employer and PERS, how it impacts FPDR 3, which is where we make contributions on behalf of our FPDR 3 members. There are 2 major PERS reform bills that were considered, Senate Bill 559 and 560. They were basically a menu of a whole bunch of different options of things you could do to PERS to try to reduce costs on the program or do other types of reform to PERS. Both those bills went into the Ways and Means Committee. I've heard no action on those bills at this time. I'm hearing of no movement on PERS. What I'm asking some people in the back inside, what I think is happening is the legislature is trying to get the business income tax and the business, all the business tax reform through committee and basically have that approved, and then they'll come back and revisit PERS reform. Don't know where all that is right now. It's just a long process to go through. But I did want to talk a little bit about should there be any PERS reform that passes. The intent of it is to lower the amount of PERS contributions an employer or FPDR makes. So if FPDR has lower contribution rates, it puts a little bit less stress on our levy and on our expenses. But there's a couple other effects that this could have. As PERS is reformed, you're going to see various PERS members, especially ops, are getting lower retirement benefits. And there's probably a very good chance that public employee unions are going to negotiate increased benefits or increased salary to offset the loss of future retirement benefits. Well, if you increase salary and stuff, that causes a raise in your PERS contribution benefit. So I don't know how all this is going to shake out. So the savings you have may not be as big as what people think it's going to be. But again, you just don't know until we go through this whole process, and that could take a couple years for those labor negotiations to go through. And from a director, yes.
Is there talk, do either one of these bills establish any new tiers, or is it just change in contribution rates for the same?
Again, the bills have probably between them 10 to 15 different little bits and pieces. The impression I'm getting, what will likely change is the IAP contribution. The IAP plan, especially for OPSERP, is the defined contribution part of their benefit. They have the defined benefit and the defined contribution. If it goes to the extreme, which was proposed, it basically wipes out the defined contribution benefit for OPSERP members. And the money that was being contributed into it gets routed in to pay for the defined benefit. It doesn't increase the benefits. It just means that you have more money coming in to pay for that, so it drops your PERS contributions. So the OPSERP members will see a drop in their pension benefits. There's also something that may come through is that employers have the option, as the city of Portland does, is to pay that employee IAP contribution on their employees' behalf. And so again, that contribution will be routed into the defined benefit. There's some proposals there that the public employers can no longer make that payment on behalf of the employees. The employees will have to make that out of their paycheck. In the city of Portland, it contributes to 6%, but also contributes 9% for police and fire. If I interpret this bill right, the city cannot contribute that money on behalf of the member at all anymore. That's a change that's coming through. So again, I don't, only on this because there's a lot of things and I've heard variations of all these, but I think that's the two directions that they're talking about the most.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any new tier proposal that's been taken seriously. The other one, though, that is the final average salary calc rate.
Yeah.
It's all cats and dogs stuff, though, within the existing system, from what I've seen.
Yeah, there's a lot more of other different changes all to the existing system. But by default, you are creating basically, you're changing OPSERP quite a bit by dropping the defined contribution plan out of it. Unfortunately, that was one of the selling points to bringing that plan in. And so you're potentially reducing some of these members. For newer hires coming in, they'll probably see a 15% decrease in their retirement benefit due to the loss of the IAP.
In essence, it would create kind of a different tier for somebody who's been OPSERP for the last 15 years. When did it come in, 2003 for the state, something like that?
But what will happen if you've been on OPSERP, your contributions to the IAP will stop
Yeah, but
today.
you will have put in money.
You will
They
have,
put
yeah.
money in for
Yeah,
you
they
for
won't
15
take away
years.
the money that you've put in, but you will not be able to add to the plan going
Yeah,
forward.
and the new people would get nothing.
And the new people won't get that at all. So it is a change, and I'll make an editorial opinion and keep my mouth shut, is it looks like OPSERP is taking the brunt for all the Tier 1 and Tier 2 unfundedness in part of the PERS plan, and it seems like OPSERP is the members that are taking the biggest hit.
Well, I'd hold that thought. I think people are well aware
Yeah.
where the imbalance already
Yeah.
exists. And the tweak I'd give to what you said earlier is I think this is shaping up to be one deal, budget, corporate taxes, and cost controls.
Yeah.
So keep your eyes peeled, though. It might all break at once.
Yeah, I've been watching it, and I
There's only a couple weeks left.
Yeah, well, I talk with our people in Salem, the government relations. I talk with them every couple of days to see what's going on, and I just checked with them, and they said there's nothing active right now. I think right now they're more focused on the corporate taxes, and I think as that begins to gel out, you'll begin to see the rest of it come down. But yeah, it'll come on quickly with it. So there was one more thing on this. From a director point of view, because I run a bureau, I have people that report up to me, and I have people that need to get the job done, making sure our members get benefits. With it is I have 45% of my staff right now can take full or early PERS retirement. Depending upon how they interpret the legislative changes to PERS, I could see some of these people doing a quick penciling out and leaving the door. It'd be better to leave now than it is to stay. That concerns me. We've been working, that's why we have Julie here. We're cross-training everybody around so we can better prepare when my senior staff begins to leave, but I could see a quick outgo of my senior staff faster than we could be able to absorb it effectively. That concerns me. I also worry about my OPSERT members is they're going to see a decrease in their retirement benefit, and are they going to say, well, gee, that was a big benefit, it's no longer that big. I may be able to start looking out for jobs elsewhere, maybe even in the private sector, and they could be more appealing. Some of them may also feel sort of they've been slapped in the face a little bit, loss of loyalty because now somebody's taken a benefit that they had expected. And I also think it may be tougher to compete for new hires because, again, some of the benefits that attract people into the city is it's got a good retirement plan. Well, it's now no longer that much better of a retirement plan than maybe you can get in at some of your bigger private sector companies. So I get some concerns here of how I'm going to manage my staff going through when this changes. And that's one of the things that I've been anticipating and why we've been cross-training tremendously in here. So if people leave, I've at least got somebody that can step in and do some backup till I can fill that position.
I appreciate you preparing for that, but I'm just curious, do you voice that to the Government Affairs Office? Do the bureau directors that you know, are they down at the state telling them what it's going to do to possibly your bureau and other bureaus in the city, and just to be informative to them? Do you let them
I've
know?
passed my thoughts on up through the Government Affairs. I think how the city of Portland presents it goes through Government Affairs, and I'm sort of, it's not my place to go in and try to represent the city of Portland without going through the city of Portland channels.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
talking to
have
Government
voiced some of
Affairs.
these concerns, and I think the other bureau directors have some of the same concerns, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few bureau directors who are going to be penciling stuff out and may end up leaving a little bit quicker.
Well, I think it needs to be, they need to know. I mean, they
Yeah.
can decide if they want to tell people down at Salem, but we don't just sit here and pretend it's not happening. Because when it happens, then you deal with it for the next 20, 25, 30
Yeah.
years. And somebody pays less taxes, but their service is nowhere near what they might expect. So I think it's our responsibility, or at least the city's responsibility, to let the legislature know
Yeah.
how it might affect our city negatively, so.
Except for the lower taxes part, there's no proposal on the table to lower taxes.
Potential tax side.
It's higher taxes and cost controls.
Sam, I don't know if this is I don't know enough about the cities or the state's requirements for retirees returning to work, but is there any facility? I'm not hoping for anybody to retire or for any of these changes, but should they come to pass and people in your staff retire, what kind of post-retirement return to work?
PERS does have that. It's approximately, somebody about half-time, you can bring them back to work. Matter of fact, we had a couple people on long leaves, and I brought 2 people back in that position for some time to cover those desks while they were out. So that is an option to do. And again, I will look at every option I can to at least get us through the transition and new people hired. But yes, that's there. I have
There is
used
some-
it. I
some
have used it
potential.
recently for some things that we have. I don't want to get to the point to where I hire somebody back and I have them full-time on my staff in perpetuity. I will look to bring them back for a period of time until we can go with it. Also, another thing that we've done a couple times is to ask the person to give us plenty of notice, and I can come in and post 3 to 4 months early and get to 3-month overlap with them and train them with that senior person in place, so we don't have a total vacancy of knowledge walking out the door. At least they can do it.
Okay, thanks.
Very important. Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay. And one more thing along there, we had talked about workers' compensation service credit for people who were on workers' comp disability receiving service credit on PERS. That was also passed to the Ways and Means Committee. I think what they're going to do, if they do PERS, there's some other PERS, smaller PERS bills like this one. They may come out as part of a package with the PERS. This one was well-liked, and I would be surprised if it didn't get pushed through some way or another. But again, it's sort of held in with all the other PERS stuff. Then the last one was I always look at the Fpdr fund. It's our ability to, as we were talking about, collect our money, our taxes, and to have a fund that we can pay our benefits with. There was one bill that would potentially have required Fpdr to pre-fund, set up that did not make it out of committee. All the property tax reforms bills died in committee. My only concern with those property taxes is the second time it's been proposed. I have a feeling it won't be the last time. So if it does come up again, I'm going to push hard for government relations to see if we can get in there and at least get some of our tweaks addressed in it. The worst case that can happen is that somebody gets frustrated and pushes it through on an initiative process. And when that happens, you can't touch the bill the second the initiative process goes out, and you can't correct it unless you can convince the legislature in the future to correct anything. So I'll be monitoring that tax reform bill, and if it comes back up, I will push hard for the next time, even if let's get those things corrected so it does not negatively impact FPDNR. So that's my legislative update. I'll definitely keep looking at the PERS, seeing what that's going to do, how that hits with everything. I'll keep you informed with you. I'll see if I can put some kind of update out when something comes through and at least give you my opinion on how I think it's going to impact the members that are in there.
Sam,
Yes.
can I ask, and maybe it was included in one of those bills you were just talking about, but referring to the Randy Leonard provision and the separation of FPDR in the city, is that still included in something that's
That was the
floating around?
property tax
Okay, so that's still.
overhaul. That was one of his provisions
Okay.
he put in the measure 50 when it came through. So that will be the thing. If this comes back again, I will try to have or government relations allow me to get in there and talk to some people and see if we can get this corrected and clarified to how this will impact FPDNR.
Thanks.
Because again, the worst part is that it hits the initiative process. That gets scary. You've seen what happens to tax things when they go through the initiative process. Okay.
All right. So I assume you'll be doing the FPDNR updates also?
Updates, yeah, a couple things here, and then we're just about done. The city had a push to change all our wording to gender-neutral wording in all our official documents. So we went ahead and looked through all our stuff at FPDNR, and we did have some terms in our administrative rules that needed to be changed. For instance, our rules uses the phrase he and she, or he or she, and what we did is we went through and changed that phrase he or she to they, and his or her was changed to their, and that's about the extent that we did. There's something like 50 instances of that throughout the rules. So we changed that, and so per our admin rule 5.105D, which is how we make rule changes, these were considered housekeeping changes and did not require your approval or to go through any of the approval process. But you do have the authority to rescind the changes. So I'm asking, do you guys want to see these changes or rescind the changes, or do you want me to go ahead and publish the changes going forward? Because we did
Other
have.
than it not being specifically grammatically correct, I will live with they.
However, I have read some university thing, the grammar changes over time, and this is one of the changes that was going to be accepted in the next, yeah. Anyway, so I'm just going to assume unless you tell me you want to see it, we're going to go ahead with the process and publish the book out. So is there any concern that you guys want to see this?
None for me.
No, you're on the record saying it's not going to change any substance, correct?
That's
So-
correct. That's what housekeeping means, and we did have other people, city attorney's office and some other people look at them to making sure there is no substantive change. If it even was remotely substantive change, or if any one of the people reviewing said, I don't like it, it would be put through the regular rulemaking process.
Okay. And if there was something that came up in the future, we could address it at that
Yeah.
time.
If it comes up, I will bring it back up. The intent here is not to make any substantive
No,
change.
I understand the intent,
Yeah.
I just sometimes you write something and it changes meaning and somebody
Yeah.
goes after it, so I think we'll be good.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? You don't need a motion on that, do you?
No.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's one last thing here. If you remember back in November, the city council, as a result of the grievances on the 27 pay period, passed an ordinance to change the city charter, chapter 5, to basically restore the 27 pay period calculation for union represented members. This left out a group of people for non-union represented members do not have access to the 27 pay period. PFFA and PPCOA have filed a grievance stating that those people those non-represented members were actually covered by the arbitrator's decision, and they should have the 27 pay period. So they filed a grievance, and the grievance is against the city, especially because it was the city council who passed this ordinance, the change, so it's between the city and the unions to go through this process. I'm not going to comment on what the process is and where it's going. It's just going through the natural process. I will keep you updated if there's any major
Sam,
changes, but there, yes?
The decision that led you to take it to council, though, was specific to represented members. So if this comes out in a different way, we need to hear about it and weigh in. Because then they would be deviating from a decision that applied to us.
It's, at this point, the city's stance is what was passed was appropriate and was
Yeah, I know
interpreted the
that.
right way. If it begins to go and there's decisions made that begin to change that and the understanding of everybody of what the intent of that was, I will let you know.
That's good.
But it's going to have to work its way through the process, and I'm just going to stand back and let it work, because there's really nothing that I can do or that the board can do at this point. Keep you up to date on that. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump to future meeting agendas. Okay, July, I have no topics. I don't know if you all want to meet with that, unless there's anything that you all want to do. It's your call on whether or not you want to.
What was the specific question?
For future board meetings, July, we have no topics to go over. So is there a reason to meet? Is there anything that you all want to go over in July? Because we have no business that we're going to put on the table.
Could we just have it on the schedule and maybe at least, well, it's 2 months away, maybe a month out, we make the decision just in case something comes up?
That's fine with me.
Unless
I
nobody's
just
going to be
want
around, I don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be gone, so.
with it. I mean, I can put out, I'll make a note to put out in 1 month ahead of time, do you want to have the meeting?
I say we still pencil it in. I think that's a good, you never know what's going to happen
Okay.
in 2 months. That's 8 weeks,
Okay.
so. Pencil it in, and then we can cancel it at any time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll go with that. So September, we do have State of Fpdr. With that, I hate to say this, probably going to add a couple more things to that presentation to show you some stuff. So we really don't have any other business to add on to it other than that. If there's anything you want to see or hear about what's happened with Fpdr over the prior year, send me an email and we will manage to put that into the presentation.
I assume the presentation will include what we just spoke about, right?
The
negative effects of.
Yeah, we can tack that on into that
I
meeting
think it
next time.
definitely should.
Okay.
You just alluded to something. Is it a secret that you're going to add to it, or what?
No.
You said you'd
No,
be
I just
adding
said
something.
there's a few more things we would like to show you that we've not shown you in the past with the State of FPD&R. It's nothing secret. It's just some more information about what we've been doing.
Okay.
And it's
Don't
there's
drop
no
a bomb on us.
no bomb dropping. I've been trying to defuse any bombs so they don't get to very high. That's been one of my charters to do. And in November, we'll probably bring a few rules to you. One will be tax remedy. We've never put rules around it. We've been administering it, but we have no rules. And actually, we just got it into the charter this year, or last year, and it had been a state law for 10 or 15 years prior to that. So we're just trying to catch up to what we should have in the rules with it. And then we'll maybe, and I come back into last November, we looked at the 27 pay period rule changes, and you all elected to put those on hold. I think we're going to repropose them, come back through, because again, the reason why they're there is the existing rules do not match what we have in the charter.
That's the one where we chose not to vote due to
Yeah.
the fact that there was an outside, or there was pending litigation or something, or there was.
Well, no,
a concern
that
had
was,
come up.
that was at a time to when various stakeholders were protesting it, and now you have the grievance with it, but you still put me and my staff into a weird position to where I have the charter saying one thing and the rules saying another, and we're being forced to throw the rules out the window when it comes to 27 pay period.
And
That's just,
didn't we ask the parties that had on both sides of that, not you, but the parties on both sides of that? I think I was the one that asked them to go back and research and contact the arbitrator, because part of the issue
well,
was
that's been the process through. Again, we're getting into it. They did go back and ask the arbitrator. The arbitrator said, I can't touch this. So the arbitrator made the initial decision, just said, that's outside my purview, I can't address it, which now forced them to go to the new grievance.
And that's the one that's outstanding?
That's the one that's outstanding.
Okay, and
But
that's
again,
why-
this grievance process could be done in a couple months.
Couple years.
And it can be a couple years. So so I don't want to argue this now, but we will come back into November is the policy that, is it okay with people here to have their charter say one thing and the rules say another, and have FPDNR ignore the rules in a particular case?
And I assume you would invite, or at least advise the opposing parties on that to come back to the board like they did, I think it was 4 months ago, right?
The issue, okay, I'll say this here, but we'll come back in November. You all cannot take any action on this topic. It's outside your ability. Right now, it's between the city and the union. It's the city council who will pass this. We have a charter that says 27 pay period applies to this group of people and not this group. They can come in and argue in front of this board all you want, but that's all they can do is argue. This board cannot make a decision. Your only decision will be rules and charter don't match. You can't change the charter.
So, Sam, was the effort before and the effort that might come November, if this is still not resolved by them, is to ask us if you can bring the rules into alignment with the charter?
That's what the original was last November, was to bring
So I think that's the goal,
the,
is just to try and bring them into alignment so there's no disconnect for your staff.
Yeah.
But not to make any new decisions whatsoever.
yeah,
Right,
Because
and
that's out of our control.
yeah.
Right. And that, but we tabled that due to the fact of we were really trying to push the communication issue with the two opposing parties. So that way we can follow all the rules and stuff, but we want to make sure that our rules were in place as compared to what an arbitrator, whatever the litigation came out.
The thing is with the arbitrator cannot tell FPDNR what to do. They tell the city what to do, and then the city, in this particular case, made the choice to bring the charter in line with that decision. So this is an area where FPDNR cannot, a arbitrator cannot tell FPDNR, you take this action.
Right.
They can tell the city you
Tell the
have
city,
to.
and then the city can alter the charter. So technically, with that litigation sitting out there, the charter is one thing, but it could change tomorrow if the decision
The charter could be, at the end of the state legislative session, we could have to change the charter in 2 weeks anyway, or in 2 months anyway. There's always things that come out at you that you could have to change the charter. What I like to do, the thing here is, we have the charter that is the way it is today. You like to get the rules to match and reinforce the charter today. If the charter has to change, maybe due to an arbitrator's decision, or maybe due to the final resolution of this has to change, or a new state law that comes out, or even a new federal law that comes out, we make changes to the charter as those things happen.
Right. And that's where and I remember this topic specifically, I'm not prepared, and we'll wait till November, but the reason I wanted that, and I wanted to make sure you could share that with the opposing parties, the city and things to that effect, is it's an extra piece that forces a resolution of some form, either by the attorney. And I know it doesn't force, I mean, we can't speed up the process, and I understand what you're asking.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about it. I think, FPDNR is not directly part of the process. And us not wanting to change rules because there might be a further resolution down the road isn't going to force anybody to make a different decision or go down a different path to get it resolved. It really is not.
Do you feel you have clear direction on how to administer the retirement for the 27?
Oh, yeah, we do. I mean, we clearly follow the charter.
Okay, so that's the good thing. We got
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah,
understand that
so-
we had some differences, but I think the problem we had was it was the interpretation of the arbitrator's ruling, which wasn't perfectly clear, but somebody made it clear in their opinion. And so to put that in the charter, I think that's somebody's opinion outside of the arbitrator's decision, right? So the legal department decided this is what we think it means, and so now we want to put it in the charter. I think that could be a little, I don't know if it's.
It's not putting in, okay, we're not looking to change the charter. The charter was changed by the city council in November of last year. Since then, we have rules that have not complied with that charter change. That's all we're trying to do, is to get the rules to comply with the charter change. We're not looking to change the charter. We're not looking to change the interpretation of what we're doing or do anything different. It just is not smart to have rules in the charter not matching up.
Right, but I think, and I remember, part of the fact is that the charter was interpreted by a legal counsel as compared, and we asked the the legal counsel on both sides to go back to the arbitrator to get clarification.
Well,
So therefore, because if we change it, then we're gonna have to change it again.
Well, that's the risk that you always have, because in order to, the charter is written the way it is as it was in November of last year. If there's any outside influence that causes us to change the charter will have to be changed.
Right. So then we have to make two changes, and what we were hoping was, because you had direct, you had good direction and pay, and you're following the charter and things like that, was, we didn't want to make two decisions, we'll make one. Let's make one good, solid decision, and if you're under the guidance and paying it out correctly to the best of your knowledge.
I'm just going, I understand where it is, but I just do not like the fact that that I have a disconnect between two key documents that I'm held accountable to administering.
And I appreciate that, I understand that
Yeah.
feeling. It might make you stay awake at night, and I'm glad you have that feeling. I mean, I'm not glad you have the feeling, but I'm glad you think that way.
Yeah.
So that's good. But
And if we'll get to November, you've heard sort of the opinion on it, and gee, Justin, maybe that'll be your last fun meeting here. You can weigh in and save it.
Filibuster.
Yeah. But anyway, so at this point, we will always administer per the charter. Charter supersedes the administrative rules and supersedes any policies or any internal policies that we have. So I will always administer that way. That's just the way that has to go. I just don't think it's good practice to have the two documents not match up.
Well, and this is just a very small part of the bigger problem that we keep running into with litigation and decisions. The collective bargaining agreement is with the city, not with us. And the challenge to our rulemakings often comes through the collective bargaining agreement. So we have a second body that sits in here on other days that makes decisions that directly impact our fund because they've been sued and lost sometimes. And that's an issue that's nagged me for 10 years. I think it's a terrible setup for a pension fund to have two distinct masters. I just don't know what the solution is. But this is yet another example. I mean, we get one of these every 6 months, it seems.
Knock on wood, I think we're cruising. This is the,
Good luck with that.
I think
okay,
that one.
so
Okay, so got that going, and then the last thing here under tab 4 is the actual budget to actual information. So I don't know if you have any questions on that chart. If after you look at it and you do have questions, go ahead and give Stacy a call or an email, and she'd be glad to walk you through, right, Stacy?
anything on there you want to point out that's
You gonna be on
we're
budget?
going to miss?
If you're really paying attention, you'll see pension expenses were really high in April, but that's because a couple times a year we have two pension payments in 1 month because the first lands on a weekend and it rolls back to the prior month. And that's literally the most exciting thing I can think to tell you about that.
Thrilling.
Riveting.
Thank you. All right. Is that all you have, Sam?
That's all I've got.
Awesome. Thank you. So nobody signed up to speak. So does anybody have anything for the good of the order before we adjourn? Hearing none. Okay.
It's a great day, let's adjourn.
Good job, Jason.
Meeting's adjourned. Oh, give me that gavel.
Oh, yeah, it's sitting in the middle, sorry.